Welcome to Behind the Tools. Here's Tradify CEO and your host, Michael Steckler.
Hi everyone, welcome to our first episode of 2022 to Behind the Tools. Season 2 kickoff, I guess we'd call this. Delighted this week to have Jesse and Logan from Trade Collective. Welcome to the show. And it's our first one in a proper studio, which is quite nice.
Mate, cheers for having us. What an honour.
No, it's great to have you. Maybe to start, it might be worth you just introducing who Trade Collective are, what they do. And to our listeners, we have quite a few people in the UK and Australia. Trade Collective are based, Jesse and Logan are both based in New Zealand. We're here in New Zealand right now in this studio in Auckland. But it'd be great to hear about Trade Collective and why you set it up and what it does.
Yeah, so Trade Collective came about. Logan and I were on a trip in Taupo. We were on our way home and we were sort of thinking, how can we give back? We both qualified plumbers. We've both travelled the world, done some pretty amazing things with our lives, and we were thinking, how can we give back to the next generation? How can we try and inspire and educate kids into getting a trade? We want to change that stigma around tradies. So we came up with this concept, the Trade Tour, where Logan and I, we go into school assemblies of sort of 400 to 500 kids, and we do a presentation on how we got into the trade, why we got into the trade, the money you can make, all the ins and outs of life on the tools, really. And it's sort of just growing into a bigger and bigger beast. And yeah, we're really proud of what we've achieved and where we've come, and I think we're really on the right track.
Cool, great. And maybe going back a step, what got you into the trades? You were both qualified plumbers. You were plumbers for many years. What initially attracted you to being in the trades?
For me, it was basically got sat down at my deputy principal's office. She said, mate, you should probably look to do something else. So then I just literally, it was my ticket out of school. My old man went home, told my man, and he said, sweet, just get a trade, get something behind you, and then you can leave school. So that was my ticket out of school. So I just fell into a plumbing apprenticeship by default almost, but that was another big reason why we wanted to start the trade tour and give those students, that insight that you can leave school, you're not a dropout, you're not going to be a dumbass if you go and do a trade, so you actually live a bloody good life.
Yeah, it's same for you?
Mine's pretty much bang on that. I got kicked out of school at 15, wanted to go to America to be a professional wakeboarder, and my dad said, whoa, I think you should get a trade. My dad's a Sparky. So Dad pretty much just threw me on the tools with one of his friends. His plumber friend offered me a job, and I never looked back. And it was great, got qualified in sort of 4 or 5 years, and then I shot off to America, 21, 22, and was, had money in my pocket to do all the things that I would have done, wouldn't have been able to do had I not have had a trade,
Yeah, and did you have a crack at the wakeboarding?
By that stage it was game over for me. But all my best friends were on the pro tour, so I'd go out and hang out, and we'd do coaching and we'd travel around America. So I got to live that lifestyle with them. And to be honest, had more money than all of them because they, in any action sports, the top sort of 4 or 5% make 90% of the money. And if you're not at the very top of the game, you're kind of struggling. So it was nice to be able to go over there with money and just hang out, wakeboard. I ended up getting my skydive license, started jumping out of helicopters and hot air balloons, and it was the absolute dream. I'd come home, work for 6 months, 7 months, and then go back again.
Wow, amazing. And I'd like to sort of go back to your sort of earlier comments, because that seems to be a common theme across the world. I hear a lot from tradespeople is like, hey, I got into this because I was told I wasn't academic. And this word academic is a sort of seems to sometimes measure a level of intelligence, which is obviously not the case, right? Some people want to study and some people just don't want to do that or want to do other things that, being an electrician, a plumber is very academic. There's lots of things you need to be able to do that are very technical. Do you think that's still the case today? Do you think it's changed?
I think there's still a little bit of that stigma at school, but, the students that are more academic or, they're good with numbers, plus good with their hands, that's when they're going to really excel as a tradie.
Yeah.
You're qualified before you're, 4 or 5 years you're qualified. The ones that are going to take that risk will be jump out on their own, get 2-3 guys working for them. So, by the time they're 25, 26, they're earning some pretty life-changing sort of cash.
Yeah. And
they carry on with that path. So that's sort of what we're trying to change as well, You can be academic and you don't have to be a doctor. You can be a successful tradesman or tradeswoman.
Yeah.
But I also think the money speaks for itself too. Sometimes, Logan and I both had this. We were both embarrassed to tell people that we were plumbers when we were doing our apprenticeship, and even afterwards when we were qualified, you'd be at the bar and a girl would ask, "Oh, what do you do?" And I was kind of like, "Oh, a bit embarrassed to say I was a plumber." Now I don't tell people I do any of the influencer stuff. It's just always I'm a plumber, and it's wow, you must do it right then.
Yeah.
So that this is changing, 100% changing.
So it's really changed. And the conversation on the way from Taupo, what sort of ignited that? What made you suddenly say? And are you still in the trade at that point? Still running your businesses?
Yeah, so I just came back from overseas. So obviously I went qualified when I was just before my 21st birthday. I worked a couple of years and then I went played a season of footy over in the UK, just northeast, in Bury St Edmunds. And then you basically lived the dream over there, still on the tools, travelling around Europe, having the time of my life. And then I had a video that went viral at the time, so it sort of kicked me into this having a bit of a social media presence and that sort of thing. And then that's how me and Jesse sort of crossed paths. So we ended up going on this trip together, and it was like, man, how can we give what we know and the lifestyle that we love to the next generation and tell them that they can live like us? And so that's kind of how it was born, eh?
And do you think that next generation, do you think part of that story has been the social side of things? I've definitely seen a shift in the trades from people being younger people certainly being more engaged on Instagram, YouTube.
Social
TikTok now, with trades influencers.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, social media's been a huge sort of shift in that perspective as well, which is, you can get that insight of a day-to-day life by following some tradies. And, women in trades are a big focus for us in 2022. So we're about to bring on Pauline. She's a qualified Sparky, and her day-to-day sort of rundown on Instagram's pretty amazing, and she's doing some really cool stuff for females in trade. So you get a really good insight on socials, and it's definitely making a positive change.
And have you seen a shift on that? I saw that you covered that a lot. We've talked to people in the UK. There's quite a big network, and actually I'm starting to see some global crossover for people trying to push the same agendas. Have you seen a shift in the number of people
100%.
getting into trades that are women versus where it was?
Absolutely, yeah. And I don't know if that's just to do with social media and we're seeing it more, but I feel like there are more females on the trades than ever. Like when I was doing my apprenticeship, I don't know if I ever crossed paths with a female on site, and now it sort of seems to be they're everywhere, which is just fantastic, really cool.
And they add such an asset to a company, like it's a whole new way of thinking.
Yeah,
well, especially if you've got a house, a wife or a woman who doesn't necessarily want a male to come around to her house, or she's alone. Awesome, female can go around there and make it feel more. Just all sorts of different aspects around it, and I think it's just wicked to have more females.
And sort of trade collective, talk me through if there's an average day, like when you engage a school, how does that look? Are schools sort of approaching you? Do you approach schools?
Initially we were reaching out. So this will be 2022, will be our 5th year on the road. Yep. So we've been to around 70 schools around the country now, right the way from top of the North Island down to the bottom of the South. So initially we were reaching out sort of to schools, and it was kind of like, we're here to talk about trades, or can we speak to your students? And they'd be like, oh, here's the kids that, here's the dropouts, the kids that are already in hard tech, that are going to already be tradies. And so that's definitely sorted to shift the more that we've done it, and the more the word gets out, and the more the positive change that, gets spoken around in the circles and schools. So it's got to the point now where we're literally having to turn down schools, and we're speaking, in senior assemblies, 400 or 500 students, and it's been really a powerful shift. And to be honest, we're getting teachers wanting us to come back every year, and so we can only get to so many schools.
And the positive messages from the students are unbelievable too. Like our Instagram is full of students saying, "Thank you so much. I was lost and now I'm found," or you've really pointed me in the right direction. Or I was really unsure what I wanted to do, but now I want to be a tradie. So that's really awesome for us too. It's such a feel good moment when you take a kid from never thought about being a tradie to I'm leaving school next year to be a tradie. It's like, wow, that's
amazing. And they're pretty big numbers. If you've done that many schools and you're seeing sort of 400 or 500 kids that go.
We'll start seeing these apprentices qualified soon from our first tour.
One of the probably most powerful moments of the tour to date, we're speaking at Hamilton Boys High, which is one of the most probably prestigious boys' college in New Zealand, and he stood up and said if he had his time over again, he'd do a trade, which was pretty awesome. So, you think when you're a young fella looking at the headmaster, and him saying that is pretty powerful. So it was really awesome.
And what's the message that gets kids excited? I
think we just show them the flexibility and the dream. You know, trades are so flexible. It's not a 9 to 5 office job. You know, you can start at 7, knock the job out by 2 o'clock, and the boss is like, hey, look, we're done for the day, let's go home. Or, you know, once you're qualified, you can pick and choose jobs. Especially builders might, you know, take 2 months off before picking up the next project. Or it's the flexibility of trades, you know, and that doesn't come as an apprentice. You don't get a say, but once you're qualified, then it's the flexibility is so awesome. And, you know, the traveling around the world, the earn while you learn, no student loan. It's just a no-brainer for most of the kids.
So your sort of the lifestyle that you've both managed to build, do you think has been a kind of really big aspirational draw? Do you think to those people?
Oh, I guess when we're speaking to them, you know, we've got photos and videos and like a bit of a highlight reel of like actually us, you know, walking the talk. You know, we're out there living it and doing some pretty cool stuff. So they see that firsthand. You know, we're both sort of early 30s, so you know it's within arm's reach of them. You know, we're not like an old sort of 60-year-old, you know, on his last legs plumber where he can barely walk, and you know, so we're in arm's reach of them. They can relate to that. So,
but we also preach too. You know, you don't have to follow in our footsteps. Like we obviously got qualified, went straight off and travelled, whereas you know these guys might want to get qualified, buy their own house, start their own business, and we show them that path as well. And it looks, you know, for an apprentice to own his own house, it's almost the only way to do it now. I don't know how you'd go to university, take up a student loan, start at the bottom of a company. You know, you're 35, 40 by the time you're even getting a sniff in these days, you know?
Right. And you sort of touched on, use the phrase sort of hard tech. And I've got teenagers at school, and you know, one of them did hard tech recently, and that seems like a shift as well that's happened over the last few years.
They've got Gateway now, which is really cool. Gateway is a program where students get to dip their toes in trades. So one day a week, they will go out with a local tradie, you know, whether it's a sparky builder, electrician, roofer, whatever, and they'll get to do one day a week, and you know, they might do that for 2 or 3 weeks and go, oh cool, that's awesome, well, let's jump on the tools with an electrician now, and they can dip their toes in it, and I think it's a really cool program, which is awesome. You know, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, I'd worked with Dad on the tools as a sparky, and the only reason I didn't do an electrical apprenticeship is because we didn't get on that well, and he found me a plumbing one, and so was Logan. We kind of just fell into it. So to be able to have dipped our toes in them all, I would have, you know, who knows if I would have still been a plumber. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a great. That's a great. Is there anything else? I'm quite intrigued as to what else you think. You know, short of the work that you're doing, is there anything else you feel that should be done at school level? To encourage more people to take up apprenticeships, because there is still this, you know, and everywhere in the world is the same, right? There's a mass shortage of people that are qualified. There is this, I've talked about this on the podcast a few times, this sort of perceived brain drain of older tradespeople that are starting to age out the industry, and, you know, they aren't necessarily got the backfill of people with the experience to follow them through. Do you see that as a problem?
Yeah, I think tradies need to start taking on apprentices. That's a big thing that we're sort of trying to, and it'll probably be our next move. Don't know whether they're scared or what the issue is, but just trying to get employers to take on an apprentices. You know, I mean, a lot of them do obviously, but just to get more and more on. I mean, I won't go out on the tools unless I have an apprentice with me. I hate working alone. I hate, you know, trying to hold the tape here or lift a bit of pipe up or, you know, screw something. Like on your own, it sucks. And some of these old boys are hardy old school. They don't like working with anyone else. It's like, get an apprentice, make your life easier. You're giving back, and then he can take that knowledge and then, you know, it just passes on.
And is there one of the common misperceptions, or say misperceptions, there probably is sometimes in truth, but one of the things that puts smaller trades companies off is the level of training required, and you know, this perceived notion of, I've got someone that's not qualified, they don't know what they're doing, it takes me more time to, you know, try and get them up to speed whilst doing the job. What do you generally say to those trades companies that say that?
Well, I guess, you know, it is that graph for the first, you know, 6-9 months, but you know that they end up being an asset when, you know, you're still charging them out at $25 an hour, and you know, you're paying them their wage, so you're still making that, and then, you know, you're saving your time by running back and forth to the, you know, the van and back, and it just having two people, that extra pair of hands, it's going to become a valuable asset on site for sure.
Yeah,
and giving back as well. You know, we're all green, we're all there.
There's schemes with the government, or they might be just running out this year, wouldn't there, where they were actually giving. They were almost paying for half the apprenticeship because they were we needed that many more apprentices. I mean, that's one thing. If the government is listening, they could pay us more or pay us something to go on the road. I mean, this is all funded by sponsors like yourselves and the other, you know, sponsors that we work with. So there's no government funding. You know, Logan and I do this off our own bat. And I think with a bit of government funding, we'd probably be able to go a little further.
Yeah, because there's a huge economy, right, that underpins this, and it's the same in worldwide. When I look at the level of work and demand, and then the level of people that are there to do that, just isn't there at the moment.
I think also going back to in schools, that sort of changes. A lot of the schools are based on university entrance, so that's where it's heavily pushed, and that's what their school gets perceived as. And we've got 79% of students that have gone to university. Whereas, it shouldn't be that way, especially in New Zealand as well, the housing shortage and the demand of construction workers that we need.
You just have to look outside your window anywhere in New Zealand right now and you're going to see a building going up, whether it's, a 20-story building or a house that's been built, bowled down to put up 6 townhouses, It's just booming.
Yeah, there is a massive boom. And clearly, I don't know how much of an impact. Well, I know COVID's had a huge impact, right, in terms of getting people into the country to work and all those things.
And supply and demand of materials.
Has an impact, do you think, on how students think about their career choices? Because one thing I've reflected on in the last couple of years is that trades is one of those sort of careers which I think has more longevity and security when at times like this.
For me, COVID, I was sort of doing more of the sponsorship influencer stuff. And then COVID hit and all my sponsorship was just bang, stopped. I didn't make a single dollar. And I was freaking out. Then I went, hang on. I'm a qualified plumber. I put my tools in my ute and I had work the next day.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
spending $55 an hour.
Yeah, it was 75, 80 when I was on my own. But yeah, contracting for $55 or on my own for 85, 90,
Yeah.
It was great. It was such a relief. I had a moment where I was of anxiety and I was going, oh my God. And then I went, whoa. Hang on, I've got the greatest trade in the world. I've got a fallback. This is foolproof, and it worked.
And it's on your terms.
We're trying to say to these kids as well, it's not forever. Plumbing was never a forever thing for me, and I think Logan was the same. It was always a means to an end, and we've found our out, and what we're doing now, which is cool. But I'm still on the tools. I will always have it, and it's never going to go anywhere. So it's really cool.
And how do you, just on that, how do you keep up to speed? I mean, things are changing a lot. Regulations, changing technology. What do you do to keep yourself?
I'm on the tools a little bit more than Logs. So Logs has sort of stepped off the last 3 years, but I'm still 40% of the year still on the tools, so I just keep up with speed.
There's obviously the yearly you have to do your plumbing registration, get all that renewed, and there's those the CBD things you have to do to keep up your points and that. So. Obviously do all those and keep our tickets to scratch.
And just having a good yarn at the merchant every morning, the boys what's complaining happening? About something, what's happening, what's pissing you off this week.
Cool. And one of the things I saw you reflect on, which has come up a lot in this podcast and in the trades in general, I know is a really big issue in New Zealand, was around mental health. Is that ever part of your narrative? I know that, I think the stat I saw you share, which we've shared previously, is that the suicide rate amongst tradespeople is 5 times higher than deaths by kind of workplace accidents. I think that was the number. I hope I'm quoting that correctly.
It's the leading. They have the leading rates in New Zealand and in the industry. Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah, Logan teamed up with Mates in Construction for your boxing fight, and that was pretty awesome. And they're doing some incredible things in the trades.
Yeah, so they basically go around and they've got a little sort of 45-minute workshop. They'll get everyone on site together and just sort of give them the tools, and it's basically just that 5 seconds of courage, speaking to your mate next to him, how are you, mate? Like, what's going on? Talk to me, And so they're doing some really cool work within the construction industry, but there's definitely a long way to go.
And do you think this will sort of bring in more apprentices in, just generally improving the workforce over time? Say improving is the wrong phrase, but increasing the sort of level of the workforce and diversity of that workforce. Do you think that will improve things on that front?
Yeah, I think so. I think mental health's always going to be there. It's just about how we deal with it, and it's changing that stigma around I'm too tough as a tradie to talk about my mental health issues. It's not you're not too tough. It's, hey, let's have a chat and let's talk about it. Otherwise, you're just going to build it up. Mental health's not going anywhere ever. Yeah. So we just need to talk about it, and tradies just need to stop thinking that they're too tough and, just chat about how they're feeling. That's what
and
I think.
I guess especially on site too, and as an apprentice, back in the day, you used to probably get picked on a bit or, get locked in the portaloo and, and I guess that long lasting terms of that sort of thing is had a lot to do with mental health. But that's definitely changing now.
You I hear a lot that's changed.
Yeah. The whole world's going so PC now, so it's, you've got to be so much more careful on site with what you say and what you do, which is great for the building industry.
I feel that a lot of trades companies I've spoken to recently that have sort of set their own business up recently say one of the things they often say is, I want to treat my apprentices the way I wanted to get treated. Yeah, totally. It wasn't always 100%. The case. And many of them have great stories of where they worked for someone who was fantastic.
Oh, we've all got the funny stories of being slightly bullied on site, you know. But it's just got to know the point where to stop, you know, the line.
And it's even things, you know, like getting out invited out on the fishing day, or you know, like
apprentice. The amount of times I didn't get invited out on the fishing day.
But that goes massive, you know, when you're an apprentice, you know, just feeling valued as an employee, you know, like, and you'll want to go that extra mile for, you know, for your boss.
So you're saying you weren't invited to the fishing day?
Oh, totally. You got left on site to, you know, you finished your job, mate. Yeah. 100%.
Lagging on pipe.
Yeah.
So for you bosses, all of you guys out there, just, you know, maybe buy him a coffee every morning or every other morning and make him feel valued.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's not going to sneak off to the van and text his missus. Sneak, have a little scroll on Instagram
while he's lying under the house. What's taking you so long? Oh, sorry, mate.
And you're touring Australia, I believe, this year.
Yeah.
Have you done much there with Australia so far? Has that been a big focus? Is this the sort of first step?
Yeah, this is our first step. We're going to dip our toes in Australia. So we're going to do our 20 to 25 schools here in New Zealand. And then probably June, July, skip the ditch and try and spread some knowledge over in Queensland, which would be pretty cool.
Great. Fantastic. And do you think there's differences? Or is it, I mean,
it's very similar. It's very similar. Yeah, but I think tradies are a little bit not more valued in Australia, but I think there's that more tradie culture in Australia.
They're just that, like, you know, probably 5-10 years above from where we are in New Zealand.
Totally agree.
But there's still a massive, you know, like we're going to be looking to get to Queensland, and obviously with the 2032 Olympics in Brisbane, there's a massive push for tradies over there, especially apprentices too.
Is that why why did you pick Queensland out of interest?
Because it's sunny and warm.
It's good surf.
And that is the reason?
Well, that's it. I mean, that's definitely one of the main reasons.
My sister lives in Queensland. Logan's partner's dad lives in Queensland, so we were kind of just going to set up a little base there, and then you know, travel Queensland. And Australia's a lot like America with their states. It's quite easy. You just do Queensland one time, and then we'll do New South Wales the next, you know, and then Victoria. So it's just easier that way.
And I guess we'll look to get some, obviously local tradies on board as well to sort of help that message and train them up. And, you know, obviously they've all got their own unique stories too, which how tradies changed their life, being a tradies changed their life too. So,
and social media has been good for that. We've been able to connect with some fantastic and amazing tradies in Australia.
That was going to be my next question. I've always felt the more people I speak to, this feels really global. Like certain names come up. We talk to people like Nick Bundy in the UK, is a Sparky who's got big YouTube, Instagram following. There's others. Have you seen much of that now? Do you engage a lot with people all over the world?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And that's the beauty of social media, you know, the click of a button, you're speaking to someone in Australia and the States and the UK, you know, and it's especially with being a tradie and that as well, like it's you know, seeing how like-minded, you link with like-minded people. Yeah. And you know, you can have a yarn, and especially with what we're doing too, you know, we're just getting messages from different
people.
So many different people
are really supportive of what we're doing too, which is really cool. You know, everyone's sort of getting behind us.
Well, one of the best stories I heard was an influencer in the UK who sort of someone was struggling with mental health issues, and he said, "Look, here's my number, and just reach out." And you know, and that guy reached out, and
it's awesome.
You know, that type of stuff wouldn't have been, and it's probably easier in a way because it's on a platform where you're not necessarily, you know, in a workplace with someone you know really, really well. You can be more open. So I definitely have seen that.
Yeah, sometimes it is easier to talk to a stranger, isn't it? You know, tell them how you're feeling.
And do you see other organisations like yours in the rest of the world? Now you're connecting with people globally. Have you seen other sort of people trying to push that?
There's nothing like the trade tour, not that we've seen yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's likes of like the BCITO and Masterlink and ITCO and that sort of obviously go into schools, and but they'll be at the careers days, you know, where there's 50 other sort of you know, like little setups of career options. So it's just a bit overwhelming.
Our presentation's just very unique because there is no other Logan and Jesse, you know.
Right.
There's other people that have lived similar lifestyles and done all that, but we obviously we've put this whole package together, this awesome presentation with photos and videos, and the way what we've done with our lives has been, you know, quite unique, which is cool. So
I'd like to dig into that a bit, because one of the things that I observed looking at your Instagram and your just general presence is you've been very smart about how you've approached that, and like you said, packaged it almost to some degree. What sort of got you into that? Was that happenstance, or did you intentionally sort of, you know, you talked about your video going viral, was that luck, or did you intentionally look at that and
pure luck? Yeah, no, 100% pure luck. It was literally just me living my life and having a good time in Europe, and just package that into a little 3-minute GoPro video and then put it online, and it just blew up, you know, within a week. It had 1 million views, and then I think it ended up at like 5 million views or something, and then just kickstarted into that bit of a social media presence where Instagram was just becoming a thing, and traveling was cool, and you know, so I just kind of fell into it at the right time and the right place, and then just started working with some companies like Air New Zealand and Kentucky, and then just started rolling on to that. So, and especially in New Zealand, you know, it was easier to be seen, and you know, you're a bit of a bigger fish in a small pond here. So that's kind of what kickstarted it. And then obviously we're like, how can we use our voice for the better? And you know, we've got a bit of a social presence and online sort of presence. So let's use it for the better. Let's do some good and help others live a good life.
Yeah, it's interesting because most of the trades, we do a sort of regular survey, and you know, you can see that most people are finding trades company via social, right?
Yeah.
Website's important.
It's the biggest marketing tool on the planet now.
But you know, most people are going to Facebook, you know, first. Handy if you have a website, I think, because it shows a level of professionalism. You can exhibit your work and do all those things. But it seems it's a real tool in the sort of arsenal of trades companies to get really good at that, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah. And I guess, like it or not, you're your own brand. So it's how you market yourself. And on social media, it's how you're perceived, how you've been. You know. Yeah, and we got to be very careful. Obviously, both, you know, we don't share anything about not drinking
if anyone follows us, you'll notice there's never photos of us drunk online ever. You know, we just purely because we're not like that as well. But then it's, you know, we know we've got kids following us. We know we have to be role models. You know, I'm very picky with the brands that we work with and things like that. So you got to be careful.
Yeah, no, it's really smart. And do you see that with apprentices or the kids that are coming through? They're just more attuned to that type of stuff, do you think, when you speak to them?
Yeah, I guess like you know, and it's perceived online as like, I guess it's an easy out. So for some people, I guess, I think there was a lot of studies that going around, what do you want to be in, is like YouTube or, you know, TikTok sort of thing. But, you know, you obviously have to pay your dues.
Rogan and I didn't leave school and go, we want to be influencers. And I hate that word so much. It's like, but then when we think about it, what we're doing in schools is influencing, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not something we wanted to do. It was just fell into it, you know, just through, you know, our passion for photography and videography and the creative sides of us as well, you know, and it just
and the love for exploring and getting out and doing some epic stuff and just capturing those moments as well. So I guess that's what, you know, that can be aspired to as well. And a trade is that gateway to that life, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, like Logan said, we've put in the hard work, you know, 10, 15 years on the tools, you know, grinding hard. And then, you know, even all the video stuff, I mean, that didn't just come easy. Brands didn't just start throwing money at us, you know. It was hard work, and it's, you know, it's starting to pay off, which is cool.
I think where it's authentic, I think the people that generally bemoan the influencer phrase is because it's a bit like the sort of old days of the 5-minute celebrity. It's sort of someone's intentionally gone, right, I'm going to do something that's going to make me famous.
Totally. Yeah.
And they've intentionally gone after that in a sort of, you know, unauthentic way, right? And that's the big difference. So most of the influencers I speak to, I use the phrase generically, but influencers, people that have a big following that are tradespeople, generally it's like your story, not necessarily 5 million views, but they posted something they were just doing on the tools.
We almost ended up on The Block, the television show. This is quite a good story. So we got all the way to casting. Yep, cool. We want you guys on the show. And it was sort of as our second or third year into our trade tour, or maybe our second year on the trade tour. And they sat us down. We had a board meeting with all the big wigs at TVNZ or wherever it was, and they said, okay, Logan, you've got to drop X, Y, and Z sponsor, you know, because that's conflicting with our sponsors. And Jesse, same with you. You can't have this sponsor, and this sponsor. And we were like, oh, whoa. And then in my head, I was like, okay, this is cool. We'll be on the show, and then we'll have way more sponsors at the end of it. And then Logan and I went off, and we had a cold beer. We've got a job to do. They didn't want us to do our trade tour. They were like, you can't, because that conflicts, because, you know, Plumbing World at the time, we were, you know, ambassadors for Plumbing World, and Plumbing World was sponsoring the trade tour. And so we ended up just saying, you know what, stuff them. We're going to do our trade tour. And we ended up having the best year of our lives, you know, traveled the world, you know, made some fantastic money, and they made no money on the show. And I couldn't even tell you a single contestant on the show.
And The Block is a sort of, if you remind me, I have actually watched an episode, but it's a series where you come in, you get given a house, and you have to do a certain amount of stuff in a certain amount of time.
I think the New Zealand blocks, you know, not like the Australian block. That's just, you know, they make, you know, $500,000 every year, and it just goes off, you know.
I think this year they had obviously with the housing boom, they made a lot of bank, money, but yeah,
our season didn't. I think the winner, the highest person made $50,000, and we were just like, oh my god, that would have been 25 each to have worked like 1,000 hours.
Yeah, I think they worked it out to the amount of hours that they put in. It was like 17 cents an hour that they. It was pretty tough to watch.
That was a pretty smart decision. So you've been quite protective of how you approach things.
Yeah, and that was purely because of the tour. Really, that was the end result. Was like, we want to do the tour. We want to be loyal to Plumbing World, and we want to get that done. And it was cool. We did. You know, we we did 20 schools that year. Well, I think we did 20 or 30 schools that year. It was a big one.
Yeah.
And give an example of maybe one of your favourite stories of a sort of someone you've engaged at a school that's then gone on to become an apprentice and build a great career?
So we went to my home school, Takapuna Grammar School. So a young kid reached out to the gate to the teacher, Lucy, who is she's a friend of mine. So she put us in touch, and I got a really nice email from this young kid, Will, and he was sort of like, "Hey mate, thank you so much for your talk. Didn't ever want it to be a tradie, and didn't even realise it was a job opportunity until now. Can I come and do some work experience with you? Because I said that I'm still on the tools." And I went, "Mate, what are you doing Monday? Let's go." So I took him on the tools 1 day a week. And he just thrived. He was just the coolest, loveliest kid you'll ever meet. That turned into sort of 2 or 3 days a week when he was on holidays. And I had him for sort of 6 to 8 months working with me on the tools. And when I was away, I'd put him with another friend of mine. And just purely through social media and stuff, he had about 6 job opportunities. 6 guys, plumbers wanted him. He got to pick, and then he ended up training with a local plumber, Derek Travis, who just works in Devonport. He literally can jump his back fence and skip off to work with his boss. So, he started his apprenticeship this year. And we'll be following.
Yeah, he
Will's
actually
journey.
got one of the scholarships. He got offered a Prime Minister's scholarship.
That's right. Yes, he got a couple of grand for his scholarship for doing through Gateway, which was cool. So that was a bit of a goosebump story, especially to go from our tour to then me personally taking him on, which was quite cool. And like Logs would come on for a couple of days, and it was just fun. He was just he's a really good kid.
And he absolutely shined. He put his best foot forward, and and that's what we're trying to tell these students as well. Just put your best foot forward, and then opportunities will come from that.
And are you giving them advice about that? Because one of the things I sometimes see is that a lot of people, to your earlier point, have decided, I'm not going to be academic, or I've been told I'm not going to be academic. Often, actually, unfortunately, by teachers or whoever else it might be. But they don't put their best foot forward when they go to that interview process. When they think about this is a proper job, professional organisation wants to hire me, whether it's a sole trader or whether it's a bigger company. Do you give them advice around how to sort of package themselves and think about that interview process?
100%. It's turning up to side on. We tell them that if you're lucky enough to get that job, you want to be there 5 minutes early. You want to be turn up with a smile on your face. What can I do? And I guess it's like with the job interview as well. Just making the effort to ring around, putting your best foot forward, and you don't have to be the most academic student. It's you can teach that. You can't teach attitude. So that's a big one. That's definitely a big one
and not having mum call up and ask if you can come to work.
Yeah.
That is you never get mum to call up and ask for your job.
I had a shocker story.
All the time, all the time. I bet every tradie listening to this has probably had their mum or had a mum call them to say, "Can you take my son on?"
Yeah. I had, when I was actually on the tour, when I was just got my job, like first or second year as an apprentice, I remember being crook, and I was like, a bit scared about the boss, and I was a bit crook, and I didn't want to go on the next day. I was like, Mum, do you reckon you could ring up? And I remember just being like, oh no. And then he got the day off, and I turned up, and he goes, "Mate, never get your mum to call me again."
Oh, so she did actually call.
She called and just said, "Oh, look, Logan can't come in tomorrow. He's a bit crook or whatever." And I was like, oh no. So that's one of the biggest pieces of advice is,
Leave your mum out of it.
Yeah, that was a big learning curve from there.
Yeah, I've always thought anyone that calls up, unless you really are at, a store, you can probably manage a phone call.
Oh, 100%.
I'm not feeling great.
And text these days are just as good.
Yeah. Well, it's that next step into you're gone from school, you're in the real world. You're learning real world sort of lessons, and that's where apprenticeship is amazing, because you're learning not only a skill for life as well. It turns you into a better person, into a better human as well.
I struggled at school, ADD, dyslexia. The reason I got asked to leave was purely because I was distracting others. I wasn't actually a bad kid. I was just distracting others, And the second I got onto that building site, I was a different person. I was just, I physically work with my hands. I'd come home tired, literally the trades turned my life around. So I'm really blessed with that.
Yeah, that's a really powerful story. And is that how you're measuring this? How do you look at this in terms of when you go to schools? Are you looking at any sort of metrics at the end of it that says how many people get into apprenticeships? Or
we work with the likes of ETCO, Masterlink, and so they'll follow up. So we'll basically go in, get the kids psyched, and then hand out the brochures, and then they'll obviously have their sort of regional managers follow up and then just sort of push it through that process.
There's definitely a lot that slide under the radar too, that might go, oh cool, think about it for next year, or it just plants that
Sparks
seed.
that thought,
They might want to finish school. Like Will wanted to finish school to do rugby. Fantastic, and then he jumped into a job after that. So it's, we don't quite know the full statistics.
It's tough to know the full metrics, but I mean we can get a rough number from the companies that we work with that follow up.
And
but
some of the schools if we reach out to them.
Yeah.
And do you engage with the hard tech sort of teacher community? Are they helpful? How do you?
Gateway.
Who's the person?
Gateway.
Gateway's the way in.
Yeah, they're the ones. Yeah, they love having us come in, and then we sometimes give them some local contacts as well for tradies that can.
Well,
take
they're already
on.
over the line. They believe in what we're doing already. So it's getting the people above them to take it on.
The
and,
principal who's only ever studied, or the deputy principal who's still paying a tradie $95 an hour to come into their house just to fix a tap washer. It's convincing them that this is a good opportunity.
Well, do you think they're measured on the wrong things? They're probably looking at university
like we said,
entrance.
Some principals are just like, oh my god, this is amazing. Others are sort of like, oh, like no, we're okay, thank you. And it's just backwards still. So there's still some.
And do you think how do the parents play a role, positive or negative, in all this?
Absolutely, yes. So Will's mum didn't want him to do an apprenticeship at the start, and then just saw how much he loved it, coming to work every day with a smile on his face, coming home covered in mud, still smiling. And I think that's what pushed her over the line. I almost had to go down and have a talk to her. She did not want him to do an apprenticeship. And then after 6 months of him doing work experience with me, she was just like, oh my God, this is perfect for my son.
Well, it feels to me like an apprenticeship is a really good way to find out whether you want to become
totally.
Trade,
you can you go to university by default, right? You go and you pay your big for things and you walk away after a year and go, shit, that wasn't for me. You can walk onto a building site for a year, earn while you learn, and then go, okay, this isn't for me. Now I actually know what I want to do. And you're not backwards. You've learned a skill. You're not, swimming in debt now.
Yeah.
So I think it's the way to do it, is do it that way if you're unsure. Jump on the tools for a year while you're deciding.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we had a end of last year. We actually had St Cuthbert's reach out to us, which is one of the most prestigious female schools here in Auckland. And it was quite an awesome experience actually. So there was 150 female girls, and we flew up Pauline, and she came and told her story. And it was we sort of walked into that school, and they knew we were obviously tradies, and kind of like got a couple of noses scrunched up at us.
The receptionist. Sorry if you're listening. Gosh, you were rude.
Really?
Oh,
it was incredible.
Horrible. She was horrible.
How did that come? So with that in mind, how did that come about? Who was the instigator, sort of, that got in touch?
So we'd been to Dilworth previously, and I think there must have been a connection there.
Right.
Just sort of next door. The schools are both basically pretty close together. And then they reached out to us and said, sort of, be awesome to have you guys here. Just it was just so left field for them, I guess.
And remembering St Cuths, what does that cost? $60,000 a year. Most of those
people outside of
most of those girls' parents
school,
are extremely wealthy, so that most of them are going to university debt free regardless. So for us to actually have gone into that school and done that was like such a massive step for us.
But it was awesome too. They were like one of the most engaged schools that we'd been to. The questions and we usually do like a little bit of a questions thing at the end, and the man that carried on for about 15-20 minutes.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. So they were really engaged, and even just that, again, like we were saying, that sparked a thought. They might have gone at lunchtime and said, "Man, let's have a look at."
I want to be a Sparky. We had Pauline come up, and she's she works with us as well, and so she's a Sparky. So she told her story. So we were hoping that they'd all jump on that and want to be tradies afterwards.
I think that's what's helping actually on that shift as well, with the number of women getting into trades, is those kind of people like Pauline who are really sort of blazing a trail and showing people that you can make a great living, and it's great
and
job
just enjoying it.
And
she does it every day with a smile on her face.
Yeah. Which is not, you can't say that about every job everyone's got. I think that's 100%. I think that is the big shift. You touched on two things. I think are certainly for the younger generation, one of the most inspirational things is lifestyle choices. It's not always just about money. Money enables that, but the ability to do that on your terms, to be able to say, actually, I'm stopping work here, I'm going to travel for a month, then come back, and there'll be work. Right? That's not a lot of careers you can really choose to do that. So that's a really powerful story. Fantastic. And what's next? Apart from Australia, do you have a long-term ambition, or is it?
I'll just change the world. one school at a time.
We definitely have plans to keep doing this and expand, and maybe see if we can get a couple more people like Pauline on to take some of the load. But just keep charging, keep spreading the word and doing our part.
Yeah, and it's just that we're just a drop in the ocean at the moment. I think there's 2,500 schools around New Zealand. We've been to 70 of them over the last 5 years. So and there's every year there's another wave of students. There's another year. There's always there's new senior students every 3 years. So it's a tough beast, and I guess there's always going to be that shortage of tradies until they start talking in schools that it's a good career option.
And you have your own social media presence. At some point, do you see those things sort of divesting even more, having more people come in to sort of take the trade collective as a thing that moves forward? Because at some point, I guess it becomes quite hard to scale that.
Yeah,
is that the intention?
Yeah, we definitely have. We've got big plans. We want to expand this for sure. For me, it would be getting off the tools and doing this sort of 100% full time.
Yeah,
just need a bit more funding from the government. So
yeah.
Well, I don't know if they listen to this podcast, but we'll work on that. I guess there'll be hopefully some apprentices or people that might be looking to get into the trades listening. Any advice, sort of top advice you would give them thinking about getting into the trades?
Front foot forward. Call up your local tradie. Pop down to your local building site. Again, don't get your mother to call up. You've got places like Itco and Masterlink to call up. Just if you want to get that trade, you will. Go hand in your CV at Plumbing World. Go and chat to some plumbers. And I say this a lot as well. Go and work for free for a week. Just say, hey, look, can I come and sit in the van and help you out? And get to know them. Work for free. Do 2 weeks for free. You're still living at home with mum and dad. Some of you, if you can afford to go and work for free, do that. That's an awesome way to get your foot in the door.
And are there any characteristics you tend to see in people? So you meet these kids in school. Is there anything you see that you sort of say straight away, yeah, you'd fit into this industry really, really well?
It's that confidence and that attitude, You're someone that shines, and we get students to, we walk away from several schools, don't we, being like, man, that kid would he'd be a good tradie. So I guess it's just that front foot forward that, he'll walk up, shake your hand, hey mate, thanks for that, it was awesome, just someone that's, that really has that kind of, that you just confidence. Feel that attitude, that confidence, that attitude, and Yeah, because
I think people often underestimate the power of that personal connection, because you are going to people's houses, right?
Yep.
You're going to connect with them, and if you're going to either win the work or then be there regularly, people buy into that. It's really, really important. It makes a huge, huge difference.
100%.
Yeah. Cool. If you weren't plumbers, and you sort of, some less than others, but you still were a plumber, if you hadn't have chosen to be plumbers, what would you have been? Which trade?
I quite like being a builder, I reckon.
Yeah, I would have been a sparky, just because Dad, I always had dreams of taking over my dad's electrical business when I was a kid, so I would have been a sparky.
Now his little brother's taking the reins.
Your little brother got on with him?
He works with Dad. Yeah, little Dad and my little brother.
He'll be head of the family shortly.
We were doing a bathroom the other day, and I was there putting all the plumbing. They were doing the lights and that, so it was a whole family affair.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Building. I get that one.
I just like the craftsmanship.
You look like a builder. I quite, but not.
Yeah, I just like the craftsmanship of the finishing work and you can really walk away from a building project as like a wow.
And Logan's really tidy too. Logan cleans up after himself on the building site.
You've got to. There's the tradies that don't.
Doesn't everyone?
Well, yeah. We did a poll on our Instagram the other day. I think who cleans up. Who
not
doesn't.
everyone does.
Yeah. What was the percentage? I'm always interested.
Builders are sick of sparkies and plumbers not cleaning up after themselves. Always. Yeah. Plumbers and sparkies walk away.
I'm a little OCD, so whenever I get builder, I'm always like, well. It would have taken.
It takes 5 minutes at the end of the job. And it's you don't want to be leaving all your timber shavings and everything around. It just it just leaves a sour taste in the client's mouth.
I'm with you. Well, I'm not that extreme about it, but I often do sort of think, well, that would have taken.
Logan to get the vacuum cleaner out if he could.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, it's good. Great. I love a vacuum cleaner. What's your favourite type of plumbing work? I'm always interested in that one. So when you are back on the tools, what do you?
I just like doing small renovations, little bathroom. I just did a little bathroom in Point Chev. For a friend of mine, and she, went and chose all these beautiful white fittings, and I'd never put those in before, and she just did a really cool job. But it was, it was a big way to cut up the floor to run all the gully for the shower. Took a photo of the finished product, and I was like, wow, I love that. Yeah. Finally finished. I'd siliconed everything up.
Really good.
Vanity was on. Dad had put the lights behind the mirrors, and it was just like, wow. Walked away going, cool. That's like a nice feeling.
Yeah, look beautiful.
Fantastic. Great. Okay. One of the other things, when you finish up, I'm always intrigued about sort of music people listen to when they're. Do you listen to the radio music? What would be your go-to tune you finish the day on?
I got a playlist on Spotify called Love Songs to Midnight, and Logan and I have done. I mean, it's got Ed Sheeran, it's like REM. It's like make you want to cry, Adele, yeah, and Logan's one of my only mates that actually likes this playlist. And we just we call it Lovies. We put Lovies on, and him and I just drive up and down the country on that with that playlist on repeat.
Oh, yeah, you actually like it.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Oh, it's
His
great.
missus hates it. My missus hates it. Everyone hates it, but we love it.
Yeah,
Pull
you just
up
said
a
Ed
red
Sheeran,
light.
and I switched off as soon as you said Ed Sheeran. I was like, oh,
Pull up
really?
at red lights and everyone's like, hey.
We're singing at the top of our lungs, you know. Love it, Al.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, everyone loves a bit of it. Pet peeves on job sites. You kind of, I know yours.
What are my pet peeves? I don't know. If the apprentice is dragging his feet, you know, that's a big one. Just run to the van. I'm freaking waiting under the house, bro. Like, don't just slog off. Like, sprint.
Yeah,
that's my
yeah.
biggest one. If I'm stuck under a house with like this much room under my chest, you run to the bloody van and back.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Not turning up late.
Yeah,
They're late one,
I'm
yeah,
always
that's a
late. But
big-
if I show up late, I'm bringing a coffee, so it's all good.
Oh, that's good. Last couple of questions. One is, what do you think is the biggest myth about tradies that you generally see or hear? Especially as you're talking to people at schools, right? There's a perception issue probably. You've already reflected on a couple of those. Is there any others, any myths that you come up against that people expect or have a preordained kind of opinion on?
Tradies are grubby.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah, I guess it's that, you know, tradies bloody turn up and get a steak and cheese pie and a V every morning. And,
Yeah, it's not. That's a myth.
yeah.
You know, we're getting bloody oat flat whites and sushi these days, you know?
Yeah, no,
Modern day trading.
Yeah. No, that's definitely changing, 100%. You know, back in the day it was, but yeah, I mean, I guess there's a little bit of that on the commercial job sites and that still, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Last one. Is anyone else you think we should speak to?
Pauline would be a fantastic one to talk to next. Let's
Yeah.
definitely get you guys in touch and
that'd
have
be
a yarn with
fantastic.
Pauline.
Yeah.
And spread some more lady tradie love.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, they're doing some wicked stuff in socials.
Yeah.
Go follow some lady traders. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Great. Fantastic. Well, this has been brilliant. I mean, it's really, really great conversation. Like I said, I think it's really inspirational what you're doing, and you've built a really great
Appreciate that.
social media
and thank
presence
you, and
as
thank
well.
you guys for coming on and helping us spread the word.
Oh, we just look. I mean, we've seen this as a big problem, recurring theme that it's just holding back lots of business because there's more work than people can cope with in many instances, and hopefully that continues. But there is this brain drain, right? There's just not enough people coming into it, and so it's a perception issue in many ways. So I think the way to change perception is to tell those powerful,
lead by
inspirational
example.
stories, right? That people can see actually there's a different way of doing things. So yeah,
100%. It's companies like you guys that have been at the forefront to lead that too. So, no, it's grateful. Appreciate it.
no, great. Thanks very much.
Yeah,
Great
guys.
talking to you both. Speak to you soon. So as always, hope you enjoyed this episode, and please do rate, review on your chosen platform. We'll speak to you next time. Cheers.
And that brings us to the end of this episode. Behind the Tools is brought to you by Tradify, job management software for your trade business. If you enjoyed the podcast, let us know by leaving a review, and be sure to tell your mates about it. Email behindthetools@tradifyhq.com if you or someone you know would be keen to join the show as a guest.